This is the one. All right, welcome to Talk About Paint Club. I'm your host, Rick Strohmeyer, and I'm flying solo tonight. Pardon the mess while I do a little bit of jostling for getting the show announced. All right, we're live. All right, welcome to. All right, so I'm flying solo tonight. So let's see. There's a bunch of stuff on the agenda today, mainly painting stuff. We're going to do this as a live painting day. And so once people start jumping into the chat, i.e. Dylan, we'll start answering weekly questions and whatnot. And yeah, so big week. So Nicole sends her regrets. She was not able to attend today, and it's all right. We wish her the best on her road to recovery. Yeah. All right. So on the agenda tonight, besides just doing whatever bits of the format that is going to be addressed, I'm painting some, finishing my space Sasquatches. They took a little bit of a wrong turn this week, and now I'm correcting the course. Also, we are going to be working on the royal working on a piece for Ghost Fox Toys for their upcoming sugar-coated show. Yeah. And let's see. And the one more Mad Monster that I have over there that I've primed a while ago. It was supposed to be this month's color of the month piece. It is our January's color of the month piece. Suffice it to say, it is not, but there were other pieces for it. There were others, and that's cool too. And I have to switch gloves because I just grabbed something sticky that won't get off, and I don't want to transfer. The worst thing in the world is to grab something, mark on it, and grab something else and put that mark elsewhere. That's not okay. So let's see what's going on besides painting in progress. Upcoming shows. We got the Space Squatch show going on. It's got a crazy good name that I can't remember, but the pieces itself, they're not due until April, so being done by this weekend is great because there will probably be many other things piling up on my list, and it's nice to have something so incredibly prompt or something done so timely. There are other projects that have fallen by the wayside, unfortunately, that we'll be playing catch up this weekend. Those are the breaks. Yeah. So tonight, water. And yeah, that's all what we got. So so this is the last show for the month of February. It's already February, if you can believe it. So anyway, last show for February. We won't be back until the first week of March. I don't remember that weekend right now. Brilliantly, I left my phone down in the basement. I record all my YouTube videos on the phone, except for this show. I actually have a webcam for that. So yeah, I left my phone downstairs, so I have no idea what time. I don't have a calendar to quickly look at. I'm suspecting it'll be like the third. Oh, look at that. We got a calendar. All right, yeah. So the second, we'll be back March 2nd, and then from what I imagine, because of March. Oh boy. All right, so March. So we're gonna have a double dead week in March, which is all right. Yeah. So the 16th will be the last show of March, so everybody will be able to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in style. All right. So that being said, what other things do we got going on? All right, so we will have a brand new color of the month. Nicole and I will show off what we did in January and beginning of March. And let's see what else. So that's it. All right, so yeah, we're just gonna stream of consciousness, because nobody in the news right now has done that really well, right? Like, or everybody does it well. Yeah. So what we're gonna do tonight, before we get actually start slapping paint on stuff, pardon me. That's right, Rick's wearing sweats today. All right. Got to set up my wet palette for one project, and then wet palette is not going to be initiated immediately. So the first thing to do is I steady genius over here has forgotten where I made this really cool wash. I'm still looking around, being like, maybe it's over here. No, so I made this really cool wash that I used on the one-on-one scale Medusa, one-to-one scale Medusa, and I really liked it. I liked it so much I had made a ton of the stuff, and I can't find it. And I wrote my recipe for it on the bottle that I can't find. So we're gonna try and reconstruct that tonight, which is cool. Like, I've got all the material here, and what I assume is the right. It's just we're gonna play around with mixtures and stuff. And bonus, I'm just gonna talk about real quick while we do this of the different medium or different media that you can add to your paint to change its properties, why you might want to use those, and answer the big question: if they all do something specific, why are you mixing them all together? Okay. So, yeah. So we tell that story. So the premise for the wash was I wanted something to go into all the recesses of the Medusa and just really help over exaggerate the definition of all the beautiful details that are in it. And I'm desperately scrolling to see if I can just put an image of that up here so we can talk about it real quick. And yeah, so we'll do that and that. All right, so a screen. We're just going to do this, share, go full tilt. All right. So with this, I ended up using like a cool wash with a metallic paint, and it went everywhere inside all the recesses to help just push those back and make everything else pop forward. And it really helped with the definition of this piece. And since it's so freaking huge, yeah, it was pretty nice to be able to handle this in a super painterly fashion, and I love it. think this is a cool execution of it. Let's see, we gotta stop sharing. My share screen. All right. So that being said, like, and there are parts of it that the wash didn't go all the way in, and because the details are so massive that it didn't rest in there, and that's fine because that's on the body of it. And what you want is the main focal point is the head, and so it went in there. Did a great job emphasizing the details there, and that's what you want. That's what I wanted. So now I'm grabbing a similar paint to the one I use, some other brand, and we're just I'm gonna use up all of it, and it's kind of in my mad desire to want to use up paints. So with the question, paints, use up paints that I have, and it's not like this is a bad paint. My one downer on this particular manufacturer is that the pigment is heavy, and so their binder is not the best in the world, or I don't know what it is, but it takes a while to get it mixed up. It's takes a while for everything to get mixed up, but once it's mixed, it's great. So I'm using this one up. I've already squirted out most of the contents into the bottle. Now in order to try and get all of it, I put a wetting aid emollient solution in there to just really break it up and get as much of it out as possible. And the emollient is a great segue to talk about what additives work how. If you heard of the click, this manufacturer actually put, I think they put a shaker in the paint bottle, and that's a nice detail. Not every, like, free tip, I would put a glass bead or a plastic bead in. I like putting glass or plastic beads into my paint bottles to shake them up. Some manufacturers do that, or nowadays do that. Not everybody does. I think it's a fine business practice to do that. Help your customers out as much as possible. Of course, they do. If they do that, prices go up, right? So if they don't do it, go for it. In the olden days, we used to put ball bearings in. Ball bearings are okay, but there's a big ass but, rust. So if you use your paint super fast, and yeah, it's not a problem. If you don't, let's see, do I have one? Yeah, check that out. All right, that's what happens. That's my ball bearings rusting at the bottom. To me, I'm okay with it. Just not licking that paint anymore. All right, so I've used some water, emollient solution to get this bottle pretty empty. That's cool. You can see through it. So there we go. All done with the paint. And this one's has a little more red or purple in it than the last one. That's all right. Okay, so before I go any further, we're gonna let this sit for a second, and we'll just talk about some of the additives you can put in a paint to make it do and how it behaves differently. All right, so the most basic of things you can add to your paint is water. We're going with acrylic paints tonight. All right, so the most basic thing you can add to your acrylic paint is water. It's going to thin it down. It's going to make it a little transparent, translucent. It is the most basic. Too much water in your pigment, when you're too much water, and it's going to help break down your paint to where you'll get some weird separation. If you take, like, you can make some cool washes with just water, and you'll get pigment buildup in places. You'll get weird watermarks, just like you would in watercolor on a dried watercolor. And if you want that, game on. If you don't, there's other solutions for you. And to go just straight water, there's reasons to do it. I do it. It works great for weathering purposes, especially if you have a very uh, pigment heavy paint and you're just going to push around and around, and it's fine. It works. Yeah. Then the next thing we'll talk about is something that, what's one thing that I don't have on my desk? There it is. Matte medium. I love using matte medium. And a pen. So matte medium is it's a colorless acrylic base. It is the same thing as an acrylic paint, but it just has no pigment in it. So this is great stuff. The main reason you use it with your material is to make sure that your pigment is suspended in the same type of goo that your paint is in, so you don't have crazy disbursement all over the place. It keeps it suspended in a happy place. It's wonderful. I also like using it if I use if I spray inks with my airbrush. I will throw some matte medium in there too, probably a little water and flow improver to make sure that this shoots through the airbrush just fine. But I also use it to toughen up the inks. If you use, so this is transparent. Inks are typically transparent as well. So spraying transparent ink through your airbrush, you're going to get some cool tones and glazes with that. I like to put matte medium in with it too. It does make your ink a little more transparent, but it also toughens it up a little. And not to say it's indestructible, but your ink is delicate when you start airbrushing and painting it on. So a little extra toughness goes a long way. And then let's see, two other reasons I like matte medium is, especially for, like, I keep a diluted bottle downstairs. It's 2 parts matte medium for 1 part water and 1 part flow improver. Some would say it's a lot of flow improver. But I keep that cut mixture with my airbrush, so I can have it there. The benefit of that is, like I said, this is basically a transparent paint, and with that, it just dries matte. But with that, you can. I use this when after I clean my airbrush or get it cleared for another color. I might put a couple drops of this in and shoot it through the airbrush before I go to a next paint, because the mixture I make downstairs is way cheaper than any paint that I use. So it's kind of cost effective too, just to make sure. And since it's mixed to the right consistency that I want my paint to be going through the airbrush, if the mixture doesn't make it, that means I just need to reclean the machine to make sure it goes all right. Clean the machine. We're powering through so if we were having the what are you listening to segment right now, we would be it would be the Dark Tower again. We have been listening to that in very long stretches. So, like, Alicia loves the story. She knows I love it more, and it's a great time that we can sit down and listen to that. She can do her crochet and I can paint or draw or just chill out and listen to an epic story that does not quit. All right, so we got water, we got matte medium, and then here's the next 2 things. So with the airbrush, there'd be a couple more solutions to do, but these are the ones that I really like to use. And you can over thin with matte medium, but as a painter in college, the idea was we were always working in glazes. So you're using matte medium and water and just a touch of paint to build it up like layers of glass. So you could have your mid-tone and you can build your values one way, or you could be able to shades one way, your tints the other, and all because of the joys of matte medium, and just pushing those layers around. Really super. All right, so flow improver. That's the next thing on the list. So we've discussed about like how water is just a just your plain old solvent. It would be like adding turpentine to oil paints. Flow improver is like water on steroids. All right, so it's like adding soap to your paint. It had too much of this can be tragic to your paints. You can actually make it bubble and make your paints bubble. I like it because it does help with pushing your paint along, but it's like mixing soap with it, and it's kind of and it is a retarding agent too, so it does take a little bit longer it does help slow down the drying process. So when you're trying to do like slick blends, little flow improver with your paint is going to work really well, and that's nice for when you're doing a wash because you want a little extra drying time in case. So if you want to push it around, or if you want to make sure it's not staining a certain area, that's nice. Also, like flow improver for the airbrush. This is Winsor Newton's brand. I typically use Vallejo, but it was unavailable, so got this. I've been using it for about 2-3 months. This is like and this will last me 6 months. But I mix it with when I use the airbrush, I mix it with a 1-to-1 ratio with water, and typically I keep a bigger bottle downstairs so like I just keep a pre-mixed bottle of water and flow improver, so that whenever I put paints in the pot, I can just put a little bit of that in there. It's already made. I don't have to fool with it. I love this stuff. And so the nice thing is for flow improver is that since it is a retarding agent, it helps reduce clogs in the airbrush, on the needle, and in the nozzle. Excuse me. I'm recovering from a huge meal that I had 10 hours ago. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this is great stuff. This is like this is the secret weapon. When I started using an airbrush, I had no idea that this was a thing, and I hated using the airbrush because I would get clogs. I would get all this other. It would just be a fancy chrome clog machine, right? That's what it was. And because I got the airbrush in like 2016 ish, and I didn't start really enjoying it until for about a year. And part of it is, just learning what does what to it. And some people will put a couple drops of flow improver into their wet palette. Some argue that helps fight the mold or that reduces the risk of mold. I don't. And there's a couple reasons why. And the big reason is that you don't want to ingest this. And I will sometimes lick my brush a lot less now than I used to, but you don't want to ingest this. I mean, there's none of the shit you really want to ingest, but not that. And then finally, I have an aid emollient. This is something that's relatively new to me. I don't know what kind of painter uses this, but this is like, so so let's describe it this way. Water spreads things out. Okay. Water will spread it out, no concern whatsoever. Matte medium keeps it all suspended and tries to keep your pigment as uniform as possible, even though it's becoming more and more translucent. This shit, it's like water on acid because it'll make everything just bleed as much as possible. And it's cool. You can do some really cool effects with it. You never use this stuff straight. You always add it to water, and yeah, it does help with some cool dispersal effects. And if I were doing a lot of heavy weathering, I keep a mixed jar of it with. I think this is 1 part moluminate to 10 parts water. I mean, like a little goes a long way. And for the mix that I want to make today, I'm going to be putting a lot in there. Like it's probably going to be a 1-to-5 ratio, because just like the flow improver with its dispersal and its retarding fluid medium, this does not slow down the drying process, but it makes it spread. So then the big question is, well, why would you mix them all? And the short answer is it depends. And that's about it. So you would mix you would mix the matte medium in to create a thinner paint. And if you can add your flow improver or your matte or your molulant to it to make that even thinner base go farther and stretch farther and farther, higher, farther, faster, right? Like I said, this is like a colorless paint. So then you're adding colorless paint to your paint to make it more transparent, and then you're adding something else to make it move a lot more. But when you start hitting these up, you'll need water to control them, because like this is like this stuff's high octane, and you need to give it some breaks, and the water's the break. So there's my paint mix there, and I'm eyeballing this, which is probably the worst scientific thing to do. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a good squirt, and it looks like I've doubled it, so huge. And then I'm going to add just as much flow improver in it. And that's a shit ton of additive. And what I would like to do now, that's enough in there to where, like, I was adding the molulant to the paint in the bottle, and that cleared out the bottle, right? So while I'm holding it up, is you're going to be able to see like that model paint no longer wants to stay on the sides of the bottle. It is coming down pretty fast. And that's great. That's what I want. Can you see that all right? No. Oh, that's that red light. Let's see. Yeah, you can start seeing me through it. So that's pretty cool. All right. So now I want my highly pigmented paint, my heavily pigmented paint. We're going to add some matte medium to it. And I might be eyeballing it live, and that's fine. It's how I work. It's why people like what I do, right? It's a shitty reason. All right, so I'm doing it live, kind of on the seat of my pants. But fortunately, since this is on YouTube, I will be able to revisit my what I'm doing. And so what I've done now is I've filled it all the way up to halfway. Yeah, you guys can see like nothing's sticking on the side. So went 1 part with paint, 1 part with molulant, 1 part with flow improver, and then one more part with matte medium. I'm going to add 1 extra part. And then, like I said, I want this for pigment dispersal. We are going to be adding water to it. And I'm going to add 2 parts of water. And I'm really going to hope that I've gotten it close. It kind of feels like that's what I did last time. It's a little more glittery. Like I said, this brand is a little more purple. And yeah, I didn't take any time to. I mean, there's so much solvent in here. We're just going to call it that. Yeah, mixed up like a dream. And it's really liquid. That's what I want. Like I want it to be so liquid. All right, so I have 2 test pieces that we can to try this out on. And my test pieces, and I'm not going to test both at the same time. That would be silly. I'm going to, like, there's enough room in the bottle that I can add one more part of something. I'm suspecting either matte medium or water. But I got a Rancid Raptor by good old James Groman. I love James Groman stuff. And this is one of the, and this is, let's see. So the benefit, okay, so that piece like this is why I'm making this wash in the first place. Yeah, and like Groman's pieces are always like super detailed. They are pretty much wash-loving toys because washes do such a great job to bring out the details that he lovingly puts in there. So it's a win-win. So we're just using the Rancid Raptor. I've had it for a while. You guys have probably seen me paint it. Fortunately and unfortunately, you guys have probably seen me paint it just because, you know, I've been fucking around with them. So yeah, what a great opportunity to try out this. So I'm not gonna grab a crappy brush, but I'm gonna grab one that I don't care about. So then, like with a mix like this, I am not grabbing my nice higher quality brushes. Anything that costs more than $5, I am not touching with this because it does have so much stuff that's going to encourage the pigment to go everywhere. I don't want it to go in the furrow. And yeah. All right, so what we'll do. Hello. All right, let's see. And there's Salvador Dali. All right, so let's see. All right. Let's see how this works. And you can see, let's see. That's going in there. All right. So what I don't want is the paint to be sitting on the surface like that. That can be remedied with water or the or more flow improver, or I could wipe it off and be just fine. So to have it a little, so as a start, this is pretty cool. And what we're going to do is I'm going to grab paper towel, and it's not staining the white. Like, so this is probably the best example I could come up with of trying out a new wash. So like I already have highlights on here, and I don't necessarily want them to be colored. And so having it go into the recesses is great. But if it's going to discolor the top layer, that's fine. But I don't want it to be so discoloring that it negates everything I've done. So to have a little bit of that staining is okay. It means that I can wipe it off and antique it and no problem, and it's going to come out pretty rich. So as a right out of the gates tester, this is super. And of course, we won't find out for sure until it dries in about, I don't know, about 20 minutes or so. But I'm confident enough on this and how it's come out right now that I can go jump into the Mad Monster and have that base coated, or have that go in all the recesses and treat it kind of like a mid-grade base coat. And so yeah, no love with that brush. I'm scrubbing and just treating it kind of harshly. If I had a makeup sponge, that'll be even better. Get a little makeup sponge, get it slightly wet, and I can wipe off the surface area just fine. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Well, all right. Score 1. So there we go. So cool wash made with my, and this ends my TED talk on additives for paints. I'll be here all week. Yeah, dude. That's cool. Put that right there. See how it looks in there. About 20 minutes. Somebody set a timer for me. All right. Well, if it's all going to be that easy, why the fuck are we here? All right. So, ta-da. 30 minutes in, and first goal accomplished. And then we got that, because we've seen many of these on this show. What I want is, all right. I feel like in Ghostbusters when they shoot out their freaking proton packs and they're like, first time, successful test. And I bet after tonight, I'm going to find why are you? Cool. I'm going to find the original solution. So here's hoping. All right. So I need a container. So what we're going to do next is I have this behemoth. Oh, now you're going to, all right. So I have this behemoth. It's not white. It's pretty white. It's pretty light colored. And what I would like to do is just coat it in my new wash so I can put all the stuff, have all the recesses just hit in one foul swoop. And let's see, hit it all in one fell swoop. All right, so I was going to use this, but it has dried paint in it, and I am kind of concerned. Whoops, excuse me. I'm a little concerned that I might reactivate some of that crap into the wash, and I definitely do not want that. So, oh yeah, this is the old jar I used for the old wash, so I can use confidently. If I reactivate that, that's all right. All right, so I squirted a helping in here. The only problem with shaker balls, if you get them too small and nozzles like this, is sometimes the balls go and clog the nozzle. Weird problem to have. Everybody's busy tonight. That's all right. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna just and I'm gonna work from the top down so that if the while it drips, I'm not gonna fight gravity on this. We'll hit from the top down, and yeah. Except yeah. So I want a nicer brush. I mean, a softer one. Let's see if we can find a softer brush. Excuse me for a second. I don't know if you could hear the of that. Oh, that's going to be a mood killer. Somebody's going to see this video one day and be like, you're not supposed to use that kind of brush for this. Well, I know. But it's the softest big brush I got available, and I'm willing to sacrifice for this. So I know, but... And so because this is so freaking huge, I will be stopping in steps to wipe off the paint. I'll wipe it off before it dries, and yeah, just I am antiquing it tonight. There's no essentially about it. That's the process happening right now. We're gonna put a dark material in the grooves, wipe it off, and be able to have that accentuated. And I think this is so for the smaller one. It's not as noticeable. This paint is not as dark as the old one I used, so I should probably add a little black to it. So this is going to come out a little purpley compared to what the original batch was. And with this particular technique, it can be done many, many ways. It doesn't have to be with an acrylic wash. This is probably the most difficult. I don't want to say if I'm being honest, but yeah, it's probably the most difficult because when acrylic dries, it dries. It dries as a plastic. There's no going back to it. That's kind of why you add the flow improver and the emollient to it, so you can try and have, like, not quite in the reactivation, but so you can have something that's going to be a little. Oops! Oh yeah. Jaw comes off. How many times have I mentioned that during other shows? All right, so let's see. What was I going with? All right, so yeah, most difficult way of doing it. That's why you need additives. You can do this with you can do this with oil paints. I've done this with oil paints. It's fun. The big problem is that it's oil. You're going to reactivate it with a mineral spirit or a flammable solvent, and that may not be conducive to your environment. You can also do this with gouaches. Anybody knows not an acrylic wash? Gouache, G-U-A-C-H-E. Not an acrylic gouache, because it's going to dry with the plastic binder. You're going to want to use a water-soluble gouache, because one of the joys of that stuff is it does reactivate with water. So you could actually like slather this with gouache, and then an hour later, after it dries, take a wet sponge and start wiping all of it off except for what goes in the recesses. The problem with that is it's all water soluble. So you have to stabilize that layer before you go back and paint on it. So if when I do it, I like to I'll spray it with matte medium and probably more than one coat so that it gets stabilized and you can move on. Bonus for what? Bonus use for matte medium. I think this needed a little more water and a little black. So when I'm done with this dude, we're going to modify what's left with the bonus part of water and black. And it'll be all right. Then my ratios are totally off because I've used up so much going in here. This is the fun part, to be able to see something so simple be so transformative. Whoops. Like we all saw this thing be white as hell, right? No fancy movie magic here. Not when I shoot 80% of my YouTube content on a phone. So yeah, you see that? That looks fucking rad. And yeah. And if you're in the future watching this, thanks a bunch. Yeah. I didn't feel like doing the what have you done lately bit that we normally do for the show. But there's a lot. And let's see, and of all the steady stream of consciousness while I'm painting. Yeah, and let's see, what other solvents? There's a lot of products out there that you can add to your paint to do this, that, and the other with. And I always like being able to make my own, right? There's still more that we could add to this. And I'll cover that. I guess I'll cover that in a few minutes. But like, there's a medium I like that's it's somebody else's, it's Josana's Magic Mix. And Josana has taken out some of the guesswork for some of this practice. And yeah, it's one of my go-tos when, I don't want to say when I'm feeling lazy, but it's like, it's one of my go-tos when I know the effect I want and I don't want to try and do a custom right then and there. So, or I've learned to use it. I don't know. Yeah, but that stuff's really cool. We'll get to that in a minute. I suppose a practice like this would have looked really cool in time lapse. Glorious time lapse. And this gets to be an object lesson to me as well. Like, The reason I chose this paint is because it looks similar to another brand that I really enjoy using. And from a visual standpoint, yeah, they look the same once it's dried and on the piece. But you start breaking it down to this level where it's super thinned out, and they're not the same. It's like, oh, look at that. Because the other one is a little more brown, more or a little more orangey, and this one has that definitely that purple hue to it, and that's fine. And I'm not using paper towels. We'll get that right out. I'm using the fancy schmancy shop rags that are like 10 times more expensive than they're more expensive than paper towels. I get them in a box. It's a cubic foot at the hardware store. Um, Works like a paper towel, but better. It's way more durable. And wiping down something like this that has a lot of detail on it, I don't get any weird linty shit off. And that's the big that's the big draw to me, and it's why I do continue to. It's why I use them for a lot of applications, because like that the paper towel lint, it just gets bothersome in some parts, like this. And in my airbrush studio, I have paper towels in there, but when I'm cleaning the airbrush, when I'm wiping down the pot after in between sessions, I use one of the rags instead, just because of the idea that it doesn't have lint in it, and it's not going to leave weird mystery debris from to help clog up the works. So this is a case where I'm spending extra money to make sure that the I have the most convenience, and the most success, right? Like, nobody wants a fucking paper towel to get in their way. There's plenty of other things to do that for you. And we'll also talk about one cool thing about Flow Improver when we're done, or when I'm done with this, just so I can be able to cover it well enough, as opposed to just like the weird stream of consciousness that is actually generating most of the content for this episode today. And okay, I missed a butt. And if a future comment comes up that I'm holding this while it's wet, yes, I am. This is very much a exploratory. Let's see. The safer work way is explore and discover instead of fuck around and find out. Right? I'm in the fuck around phase, but I know where I am. Right? So, yeah. All right. So. Yeah. Come on, dude. Work. All right. Yeah. So a lot of my details are added in. I've got some weird, I've got some coffee, I won't say weird, but I got some coffee staining on fleshy bars, flat parts. Fleshy flat parts. That's fine. Yeah, but all of a sudden I've added a shit ton of value to this that didn't exist beforehand, and that's pretty cool. Now, I don't want to do this. I don't want to show the theory of what flow improver. Oh, before we do, I still have some left. Joy of this. Put it back in the jar. Save it for later. Excellent. All right, so earlier I commented on the idea that I didn't want this mix to reactivate the paint left in the bottom of the container, and yeah, it will happen. These do work as a solvent, sort of. If your acrylic's totally dried up, would you be able to save your acrylic paint with it? No. The flat no. But you can reactivate paint with it to an extent. You're never going to remove all of it, or you're not going to save it all. If you have a mistake that let's say you got a fingerprint on your piece, you can use flow improver kind of like eraser fluid. I'd grab a somewhat more rigid brush, probably a junk brush that has been beaten up a little, but clean. I would put some flow improver right on that. First, I would scrub it off on a paper towel to make sure you're not reactivating what's in that brush. But you can use that as kind of a eraser fluid to gently try and get paint off of a newly minted mistake off. The practice I normally do is I wait for, let's say I put a thumbprint on something. I would wait for that to dry 5 minutes or so, and then I would use a little water and some flow improver as my eraser fluid in a brush to scrape it off. The reason I would wait to let it dry, despite it being like counterintuitive, is if you don't wait for it to dry, you can actually just spread it all over the place. And that's counterintuitive, but it kind of works. And I'm willing to fuck up part of my wet palette or my texture palette to show how much it works. But I'm going to put this off to the side for a minute. It's wonderfully antiqued. That didn't take too terribly big amount of time. Didn't take a bigly amount of time. And yeah, and then that's what we got right now. It wasn't so wet that it just went everywhere and drowned everything out. So I would also say, like, let's see. So I used half the amount of my liquid in there. So I'm going to grab, man, what do I want to use? I know what I want to use. I want to use my preferred black ink. There it is. This is one of my preferred black inks to use. It is Higgins Magic or Black Magic. It does dry, waterproof. One of the nice things, it does have a dropper bottle. Apparently I'm low. Like, I know there's in there. There we go. And ink is ink, and no, ink is not. So ink is ink, right? except when it's not. And what makes Higgins a little differently is, like I said, I think it has an acrylic base to it. Like almost any ink that says it's waterproof has a plastic binder. Any ink that says it's waterproof probably has a plastic binder in it. It has to have something. Then about 20 minutes has gone by. Here's the Rancid Raptor, and I think for a small scale test, this is awesome. With the modifications, we're going to grab the other one, and paint that up. And then let's see, correction fluid. We'll do that. All right, so my texture palette, fairly new, and like this one's low mileage. So what I want to do is we're going to take a little bit of water. I'm going to use my little Pop-It palette. I'm going to take a couple of drops of water. I'm going to take a couple drops of flow improver. I think I just put 6 in. All right, so here's my crappy brush that I'm going to use, right? Let's see, first thing I suggested to do is to make sure it's clean. So on a clean paper towel, I'm just going to dip that in there, scrub it around. It's clean because I'm seeing my glove through, right? All right, so this is dry. This has been here since yesterday. And I'm going to set it on there, brush it on there for a second, let it sit, and seriously, it's not going to. Then I'm going to start scrubbing it away, and it's not coming off totally, but now you should be able to see that my paper towel is starting to get green. I'm going to set it over on that orange too. The orange is a different manufacturer. So we'll let that sit for a minute. Give that a big scrub, and you can see it's slightly coming off. You can see the black coming through. This were on a toy. After 5 minutes, I'm sorry, I do not feel like fucking up a toy. Just to show off what can be done. But yeah, you can see that that's starting to discolor it. We're lifting it. It's cool. If I put more flow improver in, it would be more drastic. And this has been sitting for a few minutes. I'll grab that. There you go. If I had a rougher brush, I'd probably be scraping more off. If you're scraping this off a toy or a model, you take into consideration how fragile is the surface you're trying to save. But in a pinch, it works. All right, so Magic Mix. This is the pre-made. This is the pre-made medium that I do like when I don't feel like mixing my own. It has some of the qualities that I like with the flow improver and matte medium mixed to it. I don't know their proportion. I don't know their ratios. They call it a light sealer containing extender for open quote time that dries matte. Yeah, so it's got a little flow improver in it. It probably has a retarding agent too, and that's the other thing to show too is so Michaels calls it slow dry blending gel medium because they don't want to call it a retarding agent, but it is. And you can buy many different brands of this. Everybody makes one. Liquitex Gold, and even Michaels makes their own brand. And I think this one's pretty thick. Of course, it should be. Um, and yeah, it slows down your drying time. It allows you to treat your acrylic paint like an oil paint, sort of like. That's the lie that was told to me when I was in college, and it's sort of true. Like, yes, it makes it feel more like an oil paint because it slows down the process, but it really doesn't. Um, and the main reason, and my argument for that is because you don't reactivate it, right? Like oil paints, you can reactivate, and the dry time is so fucking crazy on that. Like, they're like, yeah. Um, so yeah. All right. So new mix with a black or a little black added to it. Let's see what it does. And I did add a little extra water to it too. So that was a mousy voice, was it? All right. And on my Medusa, I did this similar, except I skipped a step tonight that I didn't do on my Medusa, which is I coated before applying this glaze to it. I ended up taking it downstairs to my airbrush and gave it a coat of matte medium or 2 or 3, and just really wanted it to seal up everything. I wanted the paint to all have the same surface tension, so the mix itself would behave the same all over it. With these little guys, there's different brands of paint, so each one has a little bit different varnish or finish to it, and it's noticeable. So because of the inconsistencies in the finish, the wash will behave differently on every surface. So yeah. Ooh, that looks nice. What do you guys think? Looks like Kevin's color scheme. Oops. Yeah, so then after this, go back in, reinforce highlights, fix the eyes, take it apart, reweight it. I love these little ones. These are great. They are off balance a little. They fall a little easier than I like. So I tend to want to put. I tend to pop them open and then put some ball bearings in the feet and epoxy that down, so it may wobble, but it doesn't fall. So yeah, all right. Okay. What the hell? Oh. All right. Well, this has been an exciting night of discovery, and yeah, I have a good recipe for my new mix, and I'm going to call it a night and wish everybody a happy, healthy weekend. Go make something, go paint something, make something, and be happy with it. All right. Rick Stroh over here. Talk about Rick Stroh on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and YouTube. My shorts are getting way more views than I thought they would. So anybody who watches those, thanks a bunch. I do have 2 playlists set up for videos. You want to just watch some time go by and watch things get made in glorious time lapse. Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you in March.